Musical Armenia gives full music scholarships and supports music education for children from underprivileged families in Armenia. Founded in 2017, Musical Armenia's mission is to empower children through music to have a lasting impact on their lives and enrich their future. They believe that every child in Armenia, regardless of means, should have access to a world-class education in the nurturing arts environment. With 2 successful and ongoing projects in Yerevan and Vanadzor, Musical Armenia helps instill the values of hard work, perseverance, and discipline in children. Children study the instrument of their choice with weekly private lessons, typically held at a partner music school, as well as musical theory. Students also have the opportunity to perform in front of an audience. Tuition and instruments, when needed, are fully covered. Good evening and welcome back to Kandid Koffee. Today I will be having an interview with Hovsep Hajibekyan, and his wife is here and she's listening to this interview. They are both the founders of a wonderful organization called Musical Armenia, who helps the youth who come from unfortunate or impoverished situations where they cannot afford musical classes. And so his organization helps these children both in Armenia and in Vanadzor, correct?
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm happy to have you.
Thanks for having me.
I know that you work full-time and you're also currently working on your MBA. How did you make time to work on such a special project like Musical Armenia?
Thank you for the question and for the interview to Christine. So it actually started a few years ago. About 2 years ago, I had this idea to start an organization. And if I may go back, I was born in Armenia, grew up there, and I went to music school myself. Nice. So I come from a musical family. My parents are musicians. I have extended family who are professional musicians, or at least play an instrument. So music was always close to my heart and to my family, and was part of my life. So growing up, I went to a musical school in Armenia. When we came here, over the years, I would, my mom, who was a teacher there, she said, oh, let's send some money, help the school out. So we would do once in a while. As years passed, I thought I wanted to do something that's sustainable, something that will have a lasting impact, not just send a few $100 donation once in a while, but have something sustainable and help those kids. So, and I don't know, the idea just slowly developed. And at some point, it just was so obvious to me that this needs to be done. And I was consumed I was just so obsessed with the idea, and we started this organization. Thankfully, I have very good people around me, friends, colleagues who supported, who were part of it too. So that was kind of the gist of it. And the idea really is to, one, help children from poor families to be exposed to something greater than themselves, to music and to arts. And the second thing is to give jobs to the teachers. Right. So teachers get paid. And I thought there's no better way to do philanthropy or charity to help professionals in their field to get salaries and children to get an education. Absolutely.
I had heard about you through a family friend, and prior to even speaking to you, I had interviewed this organization called Aid Beyond Borders a few weeks back. And that alone was so touching because they are helping a lot of families and the elderly and children with disabilities with basic necessities like food and clothes and even appliances for their home. But usually when you think of an organization or a charity that helps impoverished countries, you think, oh, they're just going to give something so they could survive, so they could live, so they could have, a warm home and children who aren't hungry. But something like musical education or even karate or dancing or things like that, they don't really think, oh, it's that important. But it's very important. And for a child to, maybe see a video of someone playing the piano or the violin and say, oh, I wish I could do that, but they can't because of financial difficulties, is really kind of heartbreaking, because they might have that talent in them, but they don't have the resources to fuel that talent. And so when I thought, wow, all these little kids with their duduks and their violins and their dohols. It's so adorable and so sweet that they can kind of escape from school and maybe even escape from a sad situation and go and play an instrument for a couple of hours is really amazing that you're helping these children.
Yeah, really, I mean, that was the idea, you know, and to us, living in the US, I think we take it for granted,
Right.
the opportunities we have. If our children want to go to school, whether, like you said, it's music or karate, most of the time, most of us are able to provide that.
Right.
But in Armenia, children can be so far away from it. So to me, it wasn't that we want to get kids to become world-class musicians or, you know, be famous. It was really providing the basic opportunity that if they want to study music, they can.
They can.
There's someone in the world that cares about them. Far away, they've never met them, but someone cares about them enough to provide them an instrument and the monthly tuition. And like I said, you know, it also helps the teachers. So to me, it was just so obvious.
Yeah.
And I think the children's development is such an important thing. They're the future. I think people say it all the time, but part of their education is arts, music, and it teaches discipline. It teaches, it's good for self-esteem. If you're good at something,
Absolutely.
you may come from a poor family, sure, but you're good at something, and that builds self-esteem. So I like it. I agree with you. I think there's a lot to be said about not just clothes and food, but education and the arts.
The art, education in the arts, absolutely. I mean, they're going to go to school. They're going to go to school. They're going to learn history, science, you know, mathematics, whatever it is in grade school. But to, you know, help them express themselves and feel confident, like you said, through their musical talents, even like if they don't go that far with it and they learn how to play an instrument and perhaps perform somewhere and get the satisfaction of people applauding them and things like that. It's wonderful because those are the type of things that are molding these children just by playing these instruments and that being a big part of their childhood and into adolescence. And even further than that, it's shaping their future and giving them something to look forward to that they can do aside from going to school and playing outside and things like that, which all of those things are important, but music is a huge part of everyone and it helps them grow. So I wanted to know, for example, for our viewers watching, how does it all start when they want to give to this charity and help out these children? What are the steps and how will they know who they're supporting?
I see. Well, first of all, we have a website. We're working on it to make it better, but it's musicalarmenia.org. That's our website, so they can go find out a little more about it. And there's a way to donate and all of that. But let me talk a little bit about the logistics, what we do, and how this works out in Armenia. So in Armenia, there's a whole school system for music schools. The one I went to, for example. And that's where we started, actually. The first school we started at is the one I was going to. So I went back to the music school, the principal, and I said, hey, we want to start this. How can we work together? Okay. So they identify for us students who are from poor families. For example, we had a family of 6 children, and 4 of them were in music school. Mom was a piano teacher or professional piano player. She didn't have enough money for the other 2 students. So we made sure to provide their tuition. So that all the kids can go to school. You don't have to choose which of your children. That's one example. But we asked the school to identify children who are poor. And we worked with Paros Foundation, whom I should thank. They've been so helpful in facilitating our work in Armenia. They're a nonprofit themselves. They have over 20 years of experience in Armenia and here. So the money that we transfer to the schools is through them. And the money goes directly to the schools. So we don't deal with any bureaucracy, any kind of third party, or, you know, people always mention corruption. Corruption.
Of course.
And we really sidestep any kind of corruption by going directly to the school. So there's one student and the school gets paid for that student. And we pay monthly. So every month as their tuition comes, we transfer the funds to the school. And the sponsors get a picture get a picture of the child, picture with the age, and even contact information if they'd like to reach out. We had a couple of our donors who were visiting in Armenia.
And they stopped by.
And they stopped by.
Nice.
Yeah, they went to the school and they met the teachers, the principal, the students. I'm glad to say they were very impressed. And again, Paros Foundation facilitated some of that in Armenia. They picked the donor up in Yerevan, drove them to the school, introduced, and made all the arrangements. So right now we have two projects. One is the school I went to in Yerevan. It's the Andreasyan School of Music. They're pretty well established, and in fact, in the next few days it's their 45th anniversary, and they're doing a concert. So the school
The children will be performing?
The children will be performing,
Very
yeah,
nice.
absolutely. And the second project we have is in Vanadzor. So one idea I had, helping kids to be exposed to music, and in Yerevan there's a lot better opportunities for kids. As a big city, it's just typically what happens. Vanadzor, which is the third largest city in Armenia, is in very difficult financial, and there's a lot of poverty. The population is halved in the last 20 years. It's by 50%, it's been reduced. So there's a lot of difficulty, a lot of talent there. So we reached out Oran Center, which is a center run by Rafi Hovanesyan's family, his wife. And those are children who are from poor families, after school program. They got different things, but it includes also children. So we reached out, now we have the whole kind of club, I should say, group of the whole players. We have several students who also go to music school. So those are the two projects we have, and throughout all of the process we're very transparent. And no funds are spent on salaries, on anything. The money that is donated goes directly to the school. And we are very cognizant of that, the perception. Although since the Velvet Revolution, I think a lot of things have changed in Armenia. Things
People
are
have
less
more
corrupt.
faith.
People have more faith,
Yeah, absolutely.
And people in Armenia themselves
Yes.
have more faith in the system.
Yes.
So that helps a lot. But we're very careful
Good.
to match donors with the students.
Right. And that's so reassuring when people, my goal, part of my goal, not just to showcase you, but for people to really understand you, and you validating yourself and your organization by saying we are very careful, and we know that sometimes people think that the money might not be going to the right place, which I understand. It has happened before and people are a little skeptical, but for them to watch you through this interview and see that it's such a big passion for you, and that you're going to do everything by the book and make sure that these children have the best opportunity is really amazing. And I'm so glad that you are mindful of that. So I wanted to know, how often are these children getting the music lessons?
Sure.
How many times a week, how many hours a day, whatever it may be?
Yeah. So the schools that they go to, it's really brilliant. I mean, honestly, the music education that I got there and the students get, is probably better than in the US. It's based on the Russian music school system. So they go twice a week. Let's say you're studying the piano, you go twice a week. It's usually 45-minute lessons. And then additionally, one other time they go to study music theory. So it's 3 times a week. And on top of it, if the kids want to be part of the choir, the school choir, they can go usually on the weekends. They can go to rehearsals. And the school mirrors, the music school mirrors the other school system. So there's semesters. So there's fall semester, spring semester. They're typically off in the summer. So at the end of the semester, there's always kanutun, or an exam, exactly. They have to sit in front and play in a formal setting, in front of the teacher, the principal, other teachers.
Nice.
And there's always a concert at the end of the semester. And once a year, at the end of the year, just about this time in end of May, June, there's a big concert.
Nice.
So really the kids, it's not just, going to piano classes only. It's being exposed to this environment.
Of course.
And we made sure the schools we go to that it's a very positive environment, and it's the schools are very well taken care of. They're clean. Teachers are amazing. So really, it's I don't know. I just feel like by being exposed to this long term, they grow up to be, like you said, better people and have a better sense of the world and have better self-esteem.
Yeah, and cultured as well, and have a sense of, you know, camaraderie between their friends and their teachers and things like that. What about the teachers? Tell me a little bit about the music teachers that are there from your experience as a child as well, and now.
So I mean, just from my experience, I was so shaped so much by my teachers. You know, one thing I remember when I was a kid, you know, my teacher would say, "Oh, come on Saturday. We need to work on this more. Come on Saturday." In the U.S., that would never happen.
Yeah.
In the U.S., the teacher would say, "Well, it's $120 an hour if you'd like."
Yeah. Oh, time's up. You know.
Which is understandable. I think there has to be. That's. I'm not saying that's wrong.
Yeah.
But I just wanted, to me, the devotion of the teachers to their art and their craft and the students.
Yeah.
It was just so incredible. And in fact, I remember my parents would say, "Oh, you know, we need to give you something. We pay you extra," to my teacher back then, and the teacher would be offended. Who do you think I am? You know, I'm doing this for the kids. And there's still a lot of that in Armenia. So, you know, to me, they're so selfless, and a lot of them, you know, music teachers aren't rich.
Yeah.
So part of the satisfaction we get through Musical Armenia is knowing that we provide extra income for them.
Yes.
So if those kids come from poor families and they couldn't attend school, now we got extra students for the teaching, and the teachers get paid per student.
Per student. Okay.
So this way, it's not much, but if it's extra $10, $12 a month, $14 a month per student, if they have 3, 4, 5 students,
true, it adds up.
in Armenia, it adds up. It's a difference
Absolutely.
between, you know, taking a few days vacation and not taking a few days vacation for your family.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of that too, because we, like I mentioned before, we provide financing a little bit to the teachers and for their honest work and their professionalism.
Absolutely, as they should, and they deserve way more. Teachers in general, either here or there,
That's
they
true.
deserve so much more than they get, and they're very sometimes unappreciated. But you're definitely showing us how much their hard work is valued.
Yeah.
Definitely. I can't imagine, you know, having to be responsible for so many children and the outcome of their performance and things like that. So when you told me over the phone that the teachers were also getting, you know, small compensation, it's, you know, I was very surprised by that.
Yeah.
That's
And
wonderful.
that was part of the idea, you know, is to not to give charity and enable people to expect charity, but to pay someone for their hard work.
Right, absolutely. So Hopstep, you mentioned you went to that school in Armenia as a child. Have you gotten a chance to go back and see how much it's, how far it's come and how much it's progressed throughout the years?
Absolutely, yeah. My wife and I, we went back a couple of years ago, and we met some of the students actually. We sponsor. We toured the school, and it was beautifully renovated. Nice. I was surprised. That's the Andreasyan school that's in Yerevan. And we met one of the students, which was very touching. He is a refugee from Syria, so from Aleppo. This is 2 years ago, so they had moved to Armenia a few months prior. And he was this young kid, you know, 7-year-old. He was very active, very energetic, and he wanted to play the cello. And he didn't have an instrument. His parents didn't have the money. They had just moved to Armenia, had lost everything. So it was so touching. We met him, his mom, Simon, that's his name. So we got him the instrument, the cello, and my uncle also helped, who's a cellist.
Yeah.
He helped get the instrument to him, and now he's still 2 years on. He's a student, one of our students. So that's a touching kind of thing to allow him, a refugee child, to be exposed to this music, and that's something he wanted to do.
Right.
You know, we can't force a child, but because it was from inside him, he wanted to do it, and that was very touching. Yeah.
For people watching this interview, I wanted them to kind of have an understanding of, how they go about to donate to a child, and what are the are there package deals for it? What's the number?
Just like Macy's, we have package deals. So yes, good question. So our website is the primary way to go about it, musicalarmenia.org, and we have a place where they can donate. And the way it works is, I mentioned the tuition. It's $14 a month for us to pay a child's tuition in Armenia. And I did the math once, it's about 25 to 30 times cheaper in Armenia than it would be here. That's $14 for twice a week lessons, plus theory classes, plus choir if they'd like to. So typically that's how people help us. And there's a way they can just do monthly donations where it takes out from their credit card. And at the end of the year, we send them a letter of donation, for their tax purposes, all that. And we also send them a picture of the child they're sponsoring. So,
and they will get a instrument that they could rent from the school, correct?
So yes, so some of the students, when they don't have an instrument, let's say if they play the violin, we do provide it. And the way we've done it, we get the instrument to the school and they borrow from the school. The idea is, if the student decides not to continue, which is fine, the instrument stays with the school. So the next student can borrow it. And actually, interestingly, one of my coworkers, John, he sponsored a child. And he called me back a few weeks later. He said, "Oh, Sepp, I have a canon at home. Do you have a student who may use it?" And by chance, the same student he was sponsoring also needed a canon.
Wow,
It was exactly the same student out of, many. So we sent the canon, and the child now has an instrument. Before then, she was borrowing from a teacher, practicing, but now she has the instrument. The school owns it, I should say, but she's using it until for as long as she stays with the school. So we try to, take down barriers for children. If they want to study something, we want to give them the chance. Yeah,
nothing should be able to stop them when it comes to their education.
Absolutely, because again, it's a cliche to say, but they are the future. And it would break my heart for any child to go without education just because their parents can't afford it.
Right, absolutely. I've seen these little kids play the canon or the dohol. I can't tell you how much it warms my heart when I see them playing these instruments. I mean, it doesn't have to be an Armenian child. It can be any, like those prodigies that play the piano, like, It's so wonderful to see them love that instrument so much that they've dedicated so much of their time and discipline.
That's it. Discipline.
So much discipline to play these instruments. These little girls with a canon, I can't imagine playing something like that. I've never been lucky enough to play an instrument, but I've always admired, especially classical music. It's very, I don't know, I envy them. It's so sweet to see that.
Yeah, discipline, persistence, and just making art. I think that's what we're about. That's what Musical Armenia tries to do.
So the colleagues that you work with in Musical Armenia, there's a couple of them besides you and your wife, of course.
Yes.
What are their roles and how do they contribute to, putting it all together?
Yeah, so, Christine, I'm so lucky to have so many friends and just, circle of support system, absolutely, who are professionals in their fields. So, for example, Vahe Sargsyan, he does this professionally and he helps us with online social media. Marketing, etc. And RP Alexanyan, she's a professional graphic designer. She's amazing. She helps out with graphic design. And we have good friends, Emin and RB, they help out with the website, with security on the website, all of that. So I have such support system, our parents, our relatives and friends. And I think aside from just day to day, just getting that sense of, yes, this is great, what you're doing, what you guys are doing is a good thing, and that kind of emotional support and also financial, it's really, really helpful and pushes us forward. So without them, I could not have done any of it. And also the Paros Foundation I mentioned, they've been such good mentors, and also they've been so helpful facilitating a lot of the stuff in Armenia.
What's your maybe 5-year or 10-year goal from now? Where do you see yourself, Musical Armenia, being?
Oh my God.
You have a child on the way, by the way. Congratulations about that.
Thank you.
And you will see the sweetness and the challenging parts of being a parent, and maybe one day your daughter will be able to play an instrument. As you said, I'm sure it will happen. As you said, the children are our future, and where do you see them? Where do you see your organization and these children going from here?
I daydream about this getting big. And part of it is time. Right now, you mentioned I'm in school, so so we have 2 programs, 2 projects, I should say, one Yerevan and one Azor. Eventually, I'd like to expand it, and we will. Right now, what we have is what I'd call the minimum viable product. Like, we've proven that this works, that we can go to Armenia, we can find the right students, we can find the right teachers, the right schools, and we can do this. So from now on, it's kind of expanding or scaling up. That'll be the next step. That has to be done, of course, slowly and deliberately. But the next 5-10 years, I'd like to have, instead of 2 projects, have 20 projects, have 30. And why not cover the entire country at some point? So I daydream about these things, and I'm sure we will. And one day will be kind of, I'd love this to be my life's work, if I may say so.
I think that's wonderful, to have your name, Musical Armenia, you are the founder, be all over the city, for people to know that the diaspora is forever going to support our people back home.
Yeah, and our children. And it's not really about me. I don't see it as like advertising for me, but just for kids to have the opportunities, the best opportunity they can have.
Right.
And that's just so close to my heart. And thankfully, I think in Los Angeles, last year after the Velvet Revolution, and in general, in our generation especially, there's a lot of interest to help. There's a lot of professionals, a lot of people who are just burning with energy.
Absolutely.
And that's so encouraging. Something like you're doing those interviews, and that's very encouraging. So
it is very encouraging. I think we're all encouraging each other and inspiring each other.
Absolutely.
Our generation has the tools, websites, the internet at our fingertips, the know-how, the drive.
Absolutely.
And we're also humble enough, because we come from such humble beginnings, and our parents have had a pretty tough time in the past, to make us really open our eyes and see, how we can give back and what we should do and what it's going to take. So I think with the revolution that really opened everyone's eyes and gave them hope, it really sparked a fire, like we talked about before.
Yeah, and I have huge hopes for Armenia and for our generation for the next 10, 20 years.
Yes, I think likewise.
Good things are coming, and I'm glad to be a small part of that.
Absolutely. Well, small steps, small parts, but it all adds up. It's very encouraging. It's wonderful what you're doing. I'm so proud of you and your wife.
Thank you.
Hopsepjan, thank you again for inviting me to your home and telling me about your organization. It's very near and dear to my heart as well. When I heard about it, I was very excited to talk to you and learn more about it. And for our viewers, please check out musicalarmenia.org and help out as much as you can for these children to have the opportunity to have a better future with the musical lessons that they provide. And I want to thank everyone who has watched thus far, and all your support and views. It really means a lot to me. If you could also go and subscribe to my channel, I will try to have as many heartwarming episodes like this and like Aid Beyond Borders to help spread the word on such organizations that give back in so many ways.